All right. Live now. I'm going to start sharing the link everywhere. I'm going to mute real quick.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. If you are just joining us, we're given a couple more minutes for everyone to jump in here. We're sharing the links. If you could share on X or in Discords, we'd appreciate it. All right, Molt, are you able to share your screen now?
Yeah, I think I am. You see it? Or is it?
No, I don't see it popping up yet.
Right. Let me try again. Presents.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes, so all the stragglers can make it in. Yeah, there we go.
You're good. It flips between. All right, there we go.
Awesome. During the stream, if anyone has any comments, if you could comment directly on the X post, then we should see it pop up here in StreamYard and be able to display it and hopefully get to your question. Well, did you do the Nils King of the Hill for the week?
I did.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's great. I rushed my. I guess it doesn't matter this week, but I rushed my entry in early.
Oh, did they change it from first to submit?
Yeah, there's like a tiebreaker score now. I picked the highest score of the new heroes. So.
Oh, that's right. I think I went with Serp at like 888 for high score.
I don't know how I feel about it right now, but maybe I'll make an alt account and then enter another entry when I've finally done all my research.
There you go. Hedge the bets. Welcome, everybody. Going to wait one more minute, and then we'll kick things off with hearing the genesis story of Fantasy Sheets with our special guest, TheMolt.
Anonymous.
GM, everybody. All right, Molt, if you are good from your side, 5 after, you want to kick things off here?
Yeah. You just want to launch into it, or you're going to launch?
Yeah. So one, thank you. It looks like we're already over 100 people tuned in, and this is also being recorded. We've got a couple of other Fantasy Top community members planning to do some snippets for us, so that'll be awesome and appreciated. But, historically, my streams, usually about once a month, we just take 1 hour. We talk about kind of the data behind the game, any of the good buys, recent sweeps, kind of what I expect for the newer heroes. So as we kick off the new season, we're all pretty excited, obviously, to see how the new heroes perform. But today, joined by a special guest and a much better number cruncher than myself, the OG and founder of Fantasy Sheets, TheMolt. Welcome, Molt.
Hello. Good talking with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So I've admired Fantasy Sheets since essentially its launch, and what everybody can see on screen, kind of the very first version. And so I figured we'd kick off today. Could you walk us through what brought you to Fantasy Top, and then the entire genesis story of Fantasy Sheets and its evolution to today?
All right. So probably like most people back in the day, what brought me to Fantasy Top was just farming Blast. Just going through all the different apps on Blast, and I think it was like I saw something from Travis. It was like, "What app is this?" And it was like a screenshot of Fantasy. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So started playing the game, and basically since then, I've probably been playing or opened the app, the website, every day for I guess over the last year and a half. My daily quest streak, I guess something happened. There's a glitch and it stopped at one point, but I think I'm up to like 320 days now in a row. But there was many before that, testnet days and before that. So that brought me, just farming Blast brought me to Fantasy Top. As soon as I started playing that, I pretty much dropped everything else I was doing in crypto, just full time, focused on fantasy, farming it. And back in the day, I wish I had like a screenshot or something, but essentially, all we had was like the hero chart. And like it's going to like Greg or something. And we had like tournament rank was like the only thing you could use to see how well heroes were performing, to crunch some numbers, to figure out their trends, how they're doing. The chart was like in the reverse order. It was like totally unusable. Like all the data in the back end was there, right? But doing anything meaningful and scanning through all the heroes one by one, trying to figure out like who was the best one to use was pretty painful. So I guess a little bit of background. My day job, I have a 9 to 5. You'd be surprised, but somehow I managed to do that.
Right on.
My day job is like a data analyst. So, and a data engineer, data architect. So I guess you could say I've had a lot of experience pulling data, analyzing it, putting it into databases, crunching numbers, spreadsheets, all that. So I kind of just took that.
Quick question on that. Have you do you have a background in like enjoying games, like any kind of game theory or TCGs or poker or anything like that?
No poker. I guess my background is just regular fantasy sports. I've probably been playing fantasy sports since 2010. If anybody remembers Draft Street back in the day, before there was DraftKings and FanDuel, there's something called Draft Street. That kind of got me started in fantasy, and pretty much since then, I've NFL. I've tried basketball. I've tried hockey. I've tried golf. You name it. I've tried every sport possible. But every time I get into these fantasy sports, I'm always trying to find a way to get a data in a database or a spreadsheet and figure out if I can find some edge. If I can't find an edge and I can't get the data, I pretty much move on to the next sport, or so if I'm not successful, quit.
Right on.
So I kind of just took that background and applied it to fantasy.
And so, on Blast, looking at a bunch of other apps, you jump in, you instantly notice the charts. So right at that moment, were you jumping into a Google Sheet and trying to set up everything to identify some of the best heroes, and then you purchased some of those heroes and played some early decks in bronze, or what did that look like?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Basically going into Chrome Inspect and finding ways to get the data from the back end, and I was like at the time copy pasting from the website into a Google spreadsheet or Excel spreadsheet, and over time, as I found more free time, I found ways to get that automatically and just pull that and keep that as fresh as possible. So even during testnet, the whole time, trading cards, buying cards, I essentially had like my full-time job window open, and then I had testnet fantasy on the other side of my monitor. I was literally sitting there waiting for people to like drop their cards and onto the marketplace and trying to snipe cards. There were other people who like made bots during the testnet. So it's sometimes hard to get really good deals, but a lot of times you could find people list cards for cheap, and I would just sit there all day long sniping cards.
Wow. So did you have multiple tabs where it was basically identifying kind of the best heroes, and then you were trying to do the analysis on kind of their pricing? And did you think about it as like their price based upon their score range?
Not really, because I guess during testnet, right, it was just kind of like fun money, right? It was right. It wasn't real back then, and you had like the starter pack and whatnot. And you could go there every day, and I think like every day you could open up 1 or 2 packs or something. So it was more so like when tournaments would open, I would look at my inventory and kind of figure out like which heroes had the highest average, and use that for my deck building during testnet.
What about on the like? Do you remember way back in like main 1, 2, 3, and even the was there like a 3-week long tournament that was hosted?
Oh, you're thinking like mainnet, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, testnet, we didn't have anything that long during testnet days.
Okay. Yeah, I jumped in at main 1. A couple people in the New Blast City Discord were talking about it and leading up to it, and I wanted, like I saw it as a TCG, and literally saw Greg as one of the heroes. I'm like, okay, so who is who in this? And I started trying to. My kind of first attempt at gathering the data was, I believe yourself and a couple of other community members were creating the X lists for the fantasy heroes. And so then I went in and I was trying to label them of like, is this person a trader? Is this person a founder of a Web3 startup? Is this person into, memes, etc.? Because at first I thought that was going to be the strategy. If it was memes, I feel like you had the highest ceiling. Whereas if you were a founder, and that's my background. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm in heads down mode, I'm not going to have a chance to be posting on X very consistently. Unless my customer base or my audience is specific to this. So that was kind of one of my first attempts at understanding kind of the who's who. But I'm pretty sure you built one of the original lists on X, and have you updated it for the new heroes?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Oh, right on. See, yeah, if anybody can drop that list as a comment to this live stream, I think that'd be awesome for any other community members to follow along. So walk us through then, the very first version of Fantasy Sheets, and you have the sheet. You made it free. All of a sudden, it started spreading like wildfire. A bunch of us in the Discords were looking at it. What were some of the first metrics? And if you want to pull that up too, that'd be awesome.
But I guess I can go back to I guess we didn't cover. There's kind of a funny sort of competitive story back when Fantasy Sheet started. It was back in the beginning when the first main launched. People were like, how good are these heroes? How did they perform on testnet? And like, who even has the testnet data anymore? You couldn't access it. It was gone, I think, or just like, how do I crunch these numbers? So I was one of the few people that like kind of teased, all right, I've got a spreadsheet of, all of the testnet ranks for like the last 2.5 months of testnet, and sort of teased sharing it or whatever. And I was, just kind of engagement baiting people. And I got some likes, and I was like, all right, sure enough, I shared it. But it was basically the similar format. But a lot of the reason I shared it as well is because there was this guy, Frosty's. I had to like remember what his site was. So back in the day, I was like, I want to make a website for fantasy. I want to build something. If anybody's played fantasy sports, you've probably heard of like Roto Grinders or fantasydata.com. But there's all these sites for regular sports where you can crunch all the numbers. And I wanted to do something myself for that, but I didn't have any web development front end skills whatsoever. So I kind of tried to get Travis to sort of like hire me back then in a way. I pitched him all my ideas of all the stats you could do and build fantasy pro analytics within fantasy, but he kind of wasn't having that. He was like, no, you kind of need to go off and do your own thing and maybe we'll acquire you. Okay. So I was like YouTubing how to make a website, Googling how to make a website, couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden Frosty's, who I'll feature here, made Fantasy Data XYZ, and I'm sure many of you probably remember this site. This was basically I'd say this is like the OG fantasy data site.
Oh yeah.
And it was updating live. I was like, dang, this guy beat me to it. Crap. Like, I can't do anything now. So I was like, well, I thought about just giving up, not making anything. I was like, I'll do something totally different. He's got it all on a website for him. You can't easily copy paste this, sort, filter, see all the stats in one big long, list. So I'll just take my sheet that I've been doing for forever and I'll make it public. So that's kind of what started Fantasy Sheets, essentially. Is like I needed to come up with something unique, totally different than Fantasy Data XYZ, what Frosty's was doing. And then there was always kind of, I feel like early on, it was very friendly, but there was like competition of like who's releasing what stats, who's releasing what data, adding new features. I was trying to keep up with him. He was trying to keep up with me. And we even had a few DMs of like, should we combine forces essentially and make one Molt plus Frosty's fantasy data site, but it never happened.
I remember reaching out to you for the very first prototype that we had built for the New Blast City Discord fantasy top community. We used Fantasy Sheets, this sheet, to copy paste over that data, and I was trying to think of like, it's a new game. Like, is there a first mover advantage, last mover advantage? And I started to realize like every single game that has a community around it, every tool that's put out there just accelerates the game. And that's what I get so excited by. And some, like I'm, non-technical, can't code. And so in thinking through like how you want data displayed, I instantly found myself like obsessing with literally what you have on the screen, because that's what I was used to. So copy pasting in and then like trying to figure out like, oh, should I track this metric? Or, if somebody goes MIA for a while, like what is their true long-term score if they come back? Whereas in like some of the other tools that I see a lot of value in the space, like Board Sharky with FanFan Pro, like that is an example. Like you can tell he like wants to visualize everything really nice, and it has some of the best chart visualizations out there. But I'm a spreadsheet guy, so what you got up on screen, like this was my go-to for months while playing the game.
Yeah, it's largely hasn't really changed much. It's kind of insane. I was looking like at the change log, so it's been going on for over a year now. At one point I thought I would automate it, but basically it used to be a few times a day back heavy early, like main 1, main 2. I used to update it more, but now it's just updated twice a week, and been doing this for over a year now. But
that's incredible.
Yeah, I honestly don't think the structure has changed that much. I've maybe added like some median scores going back historically. I added that. And then maybe like the supply numbers. I think for a while we couldn't even easily get the supply information or inflation degree.
Yeah. What about on this original sheet? What was kind of the aha moment that you had when you realized you wanted to build out a site and start to kind of categorize more of the data points? Or was there a metric on the sheet that you knew would become valuable for players, that as soon as you started thinking about building it out in a tab itself, you're like, okay, I need to take a step back and think about launching like a full-fledged site?
I think the first one, it wasn't even anything to do there. I think it was, I was doing this view for my, can you see it now? Or maybe I'll update why, but I was doing the Hero Score Center, or basically my own King of the Hills.
Okay. And so what was that around the same time? Was there like the Biddle where you could submit the apps, the prompted apps, that there was some collaboration and giveaways from Fantasy? Or was this before?
This was maybe before, yeah.
Okay. So King of the Hill, so when you had this, like you were using it just internally, just for personal use?
Yes, because there was no, within the tournament, if you will, like homepage, you just had a leaderboard. You didn't know like who was the best at what star. That didn't exist for like months and months within the app.
That's right. Yeah, no awesome, like the S tier charts that everybody seems to put out on Saturdays and Sundays now.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of, it was more just like necessarily sharing a metric per se. At first, it was more just I have these tools that I like to use that I find useful in kind of tracking a tournament, and I would like to share that with everybody else. And so I kind of made that. And I guess you're maybe also thinking of like utilization. This never was part of the actual Google Sheets, but it was something I was tracking just to see ownership and that. So that was maybe those two things were probably the first two tabs or pages I added.
Let's talk more about the hero utilization. So you know, as the game evolves, and obviously, you know, in startup mode, so it's, you know, what's working, double down on. Everything is an experiment, as we know. But I kind of like try to look at the game as, you know, what's a sign showing how early into the evolution of the game are we? And this is something I've spoken about on past streams. But one of my go-tos is I believe Makesy is the best utility hero, simply because he has communicated with everyone. He's also a player himself. So I like going back through the hero utilization on fantasysheets.xyz, and going to Makesy and seeing like what percentage of his cards are being utilized in that tournament or the past tournament. Just because to me, it's like an indicator of like everybody needs a Makesy in their collection every other week, you know, 1-star, going into the non-reverse leagues. And as soon as that gets to like, you know, 80, 85, 90%, then I feel like the game has gotten to a point where there's enough players submitting enough decks, and then that utility card is being properly utilized. And so that was one of the ways I've been able to utilize like this chart here. Have you seen it the same way, or do you see other insights through the hero utilizations?
You definitely see, like, you know, Makesy is gradually, unfortunately I don't have like a historical utilization, but you have definitely seen him essentially become, he used to maybe be a 15% reverse hero. Now he's 40 on the last one when he was reverse. But you can see him on non-reverse weeks. He is number one across like silver, gold, and bronze, right? Maybe a little bit less in gold, because with the higher star cap, you don't, like, a 1-star is not required, but still good. And we've had a lot of good 1-stars. But silver and bronze, he just keeps going up and up and up, and essentially is like required in order to win ETH, basically, in silver and bronze. Exactly.
Yeah, I think about it, you know, in like one of my favorite combinations in bronze is when an 8-7-1-1-1 works. And then on silver, it's when like the first 3 cards or 3 rares add up to 21, and there's a Makesy and another 1-star. Although this past week, I think plenty of us got wrecked on 5th consecutive 0 week from DB.
Yeah,
and so that was not fun. But yeah, I love the hero utilization.
Yeah. Didn't you win? There was an 8-7-1-1. I think you won or got second when it was like Waz, DB, and maybe not Fred Guy came back. And I think you gambled with Red Guy and won that week, and that was like an insane bronze score.
Yeah, I think it hit the all time. I don't know if it's still the all time, but I'm expecting some of these upcoming weeks to potentially have new all time highs for scores. Yeah. What about or actually, we've got a question here. AI Bruh says, "What are my probabilities of winning silver?" He's got a rare Klim, rare Uni, rare Jess, common Makesy, common Ansem. He needs the quants to tell him. Do you have any thoughts on that lineup?
Common Ansem, common Makesy. What is Jess this week? Is he an 8-star? I think he's an 8-star.
Yes.
I feel like there's good. I mean, it's definitely a great combination right there. I think the wild cards, right, are, you know, DB could easily outscore Makesy. And other people might pair. Clint is definitely going to be in the top deck for sure. I think there will be somebody who could use like a Dip or a Greg as that instead of that rare dress. What's his name? JTH. We'll probably have a combo like that. So I think it's a great combination. I'd play it. I just think there will be that rare Jess, the 8-star. I don't think he can finish top 5 like some of the other ones.
Yeah, I think out of this list, like Klim has to make his way in there. Rare Klim at 5-star, that's awesome. On the Ansem side, so I actually picked up an Ansem and an Evanesce because I was trying to think about, is the winning deck, can it afford to have Makesy plus Ansem, or can the winning deck end up being like essentially 20 stars for the first 3, and then the Evanesce at 2-star, and that's where I think about a lot of times like points per star. And that ceiling. And Evanesce, like over the last couple of days, he's just been, posting up a storm. So I was originally like, I love the, like I mentioned in bronze, 87111, but in silver, when it works out, the kind of 21 across the 3 rares and then 2 1-stars. But I'm leaning towards the idea of like, how do you get it to 20? Add the Evanesce and then the Ansem. I would have to guess like the majority of the time the winning decks in bronze and silver will have Makesy. But I think Evanesce could be kind of like the dark horse for the 2-star.
Yeah, then Alon is another 8-star.
Yes.
But yeah. No.
Cool. Hopefully that helped, or confused you more. Sorry about that. Yeah, if anyone has any other questions, it's just commenting directly to the post on X, and then we'll be able to get them up here on screen. But Molt, how about we, so on that page there for the screen you're sharing, anything else that you can kind of tease for us that you're building out or working on right now?
Good question. Yeah, I've been pondering what to build next. I haven't really added anything in a while because a lot of the stuff, it's like I built hero holders recently because that's something I was personally using to basically find people who had cards and were selling them or were inactive and they might want to sell. So for a while there, I was actually going through this and like DMing people like, hey, I need this card. It's like a good card. It's expensive. I've got the highest bid. You want to sell it to me to my bid? I'd say maybe that was like effective 10% of the time. A lot of times people just don't check their DMs.
That's a lot of one-on-one work, for sure. What about so as you mentioned that though, I've got a question for you then. Do you think that as the like right now, I'm more focused on number of decks. I think if number of decks each week grow, like I'm okay with that because that shows conviction and people are increasing their decks. Obviously, we want more specific players. But I think it varies a lot between, a player entering the game today who might spend, 0.3 ETH and, play 1 or 2 bronze decks to a player saying, hey, 1.5 ETH and I want something that can farm frags in silver, something like that. But do you think that we'll reach a point in time where the hero utilization, you'll look at it and you'll be like, this is so weird. It's, the game has grown, but then we can't get above like 80% for this hero. Why is that? And do you think something like this could come into play where you could start to realize it's kind of like how I think about like, Bitcoin, like 20-30% gone forever. Do you think that it's in dormant accounts and something like this could really help us to understand like that 80% utilization is because there is a player who's gone MIA for whatever reason that was sitting on 5, 10, 15 copies?
I don't think I've honestly pondered that or thought much about that.
That's something I again the Makesy has like the health check on it, trending in the right direction. But yeah, I'd be curious just to see like what percentage of any hero is in a dormant account, and then also how we can get those dormant accounts back to the weekly players.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's funny. I will, message somebody and be like, "Hey, I see you've got like a rare heart, and I need that for this next coming week. You want to sell it?" And they're like, "No, I need to actually. Thanks for reminding me. I need to start playing the game again or whatever." So it does kind of like nudge people to get them more active. But yeah,
push notifications I think would be key, especially as more heroes jump into the game. Like this is awesome to see so many heroes, coming back. I think that's important, just a reminder, because obviously everybody's busy. But I also know the dopamine is there, where if there's like a countdown to submit the decks, And that's something we've been testing out. And on the HUD site, it's like, here's a bronze tournament deck. We didn't have any notifications. People were messaging after it started, said they forgot. So then it's just like, boom, push notification, front and center. And then that still wasn't good enough. So then we evolved it into like this actual countdown timer. Just anything to like get people to have some FOMO or actually check that box.
100%. Yeah, we definitely need to get notifications as a priority to remind people, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. Who's that says, I need help consolidating my cards. Have like 350 cards and very rarely finish in the money. Ooh, that's a good sized collection.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. So what would I say? Let's see. I guess let's go look real quick. Do we have time for that? Or just want to improv switch here?
Yeah, good idea. Pull up the collection here.
I mean, good cards. I'll take that, Clint, if you want to consolidate and sell it to me. What do we see here? I see a lot of, I'd say, burnable cards. I don't see, I think one thing to, and one thing that's actually kind of reminds me of something I need to do on my site, but I think Sharky's done it as well, Vis-a-Vis has done it as well, is highlight the heroes that are the most successful or profitable or have the highest ROI. And it, basically ones that you frequently see in winning ETH decks. And I can just easily spot, like, a good one is Route to Fi. Probably has never appeared in many ETH winning decks in common or silver. That's a card, burn it, sell it, and then reinvest that into a card that you do frequently see winning in Elite and Bronze.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, the something we should think about too is, historically I've suggested to people like, burn floors, sell mid-tier heroes, try to play the top 50. That kind of evolved after new heroes were rotated into kind of top 75, and we know that that's always changing. But I do think with the burn leaderboard knowing like no details about it, that makes it a step towards more like plus EV to go on burning sprees. And just a reminder, if you are going to burn, make sure you burn at a minimum 10 at a time to maximize your fragment bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another tip is like heroes that where's another one? D's used to be pretty good, but I mean, a lot of times if you're playing silver and bronze, you need some volatility. You need heroes that will outperform their current star. And when you kind of see very little range and consistency, right? That's not necessarily a good thing for winning ETH. It's more of a good thing for winning frags and stable winning cards. But if you want to win ETH, you need volatility in your heroes, and heroes that like Gout, Coin Guru, Hugo, formerly volatility.
And I also like looking at the ranges of just like when they've gotten out of range and then trying to understand why. So stats as an example for 3 stars, we knew he was traveling, things started to drop. He can have a very high ceiling. But if you get really excited when he's like 5 or 6 stars, I think you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. Whereas if he's 2 to 3 stars, naturally just kind of getting more excited. So, there's definitely some seasonality there when heroes, if their range is between 2 stars and 6 stars, just to understand where you have to take the risk.
Yeah. And I mean, that reminds me of like when, I can't say it's necessarily 100% true of stats, but when you see a hero go from 3 stars to 5 stars one week or have one really good week, a lot of times that's a good time to sell when they're at the 5 stars, because they basically hit their ceiling, in my opinion. Right. I mean, and I am primarily focused on silver and bronze and winning ETH. So I am optimizing for that scenario. And a lot of times, like Heart right now had a really good week. I'm not saying I would sell Heart, but it's an opportunity of like Heart can't get any higher than this right now. Like it's as an 8-star, your return on that isn't going to be as good because they're very likely going to fall back into that mid-hero range for this coming week.
And I've noticed a lot. So, I swept SERP. I got it to like 20% of the supply. I don't know if inflation degree is still at 16 or not. But when I swept him, I'm like, okay, so he's a fantasy top player. Angel investor in fantasy top, like, has played the game before. There's a reason to come back. If he wants to, he can give Otto a run for his money. And so then I started thinking about if he debuted at a 6-star, what would it take for him to get up to 8, and then could he stay there? So I'm taking a lot of risk with no kind of proven track record for him, but I really liked that he debuted at 6, whereas then I would have not swept had he debuted at 8, because I would have said like, okay, this is it. So a lot of the new heroes have the opportunity to prove themselves, and I think that is that's pretty exciting. Looking through, just like you mentioned, when a hero like Heart, as an example, hits 8 stars, I feel the same way. Like John Wang, I avoid some of the heroes that are kind of mid-tier, but they also have a lot of ceiling, like Bandit and Vo. We know they've been getting botted, and so that's something we've got to take into consideration as well. And you've got to be willing to go possibly 1 or 2 weeks of letting them kind of drop off, and then you have the upside in playing them. But if there were ever a time that you wanted to sell that card and pick up other heroes, towards the peak where a lot of people get really excited, there's that FOMO. Some people are FOMOing into 8-star John Wang, which I'm not one of them, but all power to them.
Yeah, John Wang is a interesting one, right? Like it just kind of has been a burnable card for like a year, right? Maybe there was like one time when he released his like app and had a really good week, and everybody bought the card after that, and then went to like nothing. But I, for some reason, feel like this might be here to stay for like a month or so. So I actually bought 2 John Wang rares, but more for just elite or gold farming. It's just like a cheap value farming card. Not expecting him to actually like put him in my top silver deck for sure.
And that's a good strategy too. The nowadays hitting right around 4,000 or a little bit less to hit top 799 or 600 through 799th in elite. Just a reminder there, you end up with 150 fragments, whereas in around that same score to get 100 fragments for farming in gold or silver. So John Wang's probably the best example right now going into, if I had any copies that I had opened in packs, etc., and I'm not selling, then just adding that as the 4th or 5th card in a farming deck for elite sounds spot on. And an Enormous James, sell and level up to better cards. I've done a lot of consolidating this past week, leveled up. So I've gone from 25 common ICOs to the 5 rares. Leveled up a lot of rares because I'm focused entirely on trying to win silver in this upcoming season. So all my effort and all my fantasy top bandwidth is all focused on winning silver, which required a lot of leveling up.
Cool. Like the questions.
Yeah, keep them coming, everybody. Yeah, good idea, Frog Leader too. Like, I mean, John Wang, 6-star, put him in reverse. I think that's a good strategy as well. Cool. So what about, have you built your decks for tomorrow yet?
I have not. My strategy lately has been some U.S. Time is late at night, somewhere between, wait until last minute, somewhere between like 10 and midnight, I will build my top best decks in silver and bronze, kind of just waiting for all the latest information, waiting to see if any of my bids hit or any of their trades. So I'll get those added, go to bed, wake up the next day, and maybe like 2 hours before the tournament, I'll go ahead and put all my extra decks in, which I don't expect to be competitive. I just expect them to be more farming. So I haven't done any of that yet.
So can I get your feedback on a couple of my decks?
Yeah.
I've got, so I'm just going to switch over here. So I did, again, I want to focus on silver, and here's I always go through the phase of I build I build the decks, like the top 2 or 3 that I'm really excited by, and then I wait and I do try to get closer to start time, because obviously that's when we have all the information. Usually waiting on any of the last minute, like hero sideline list that HK puts out. That's always helpful. So here's some of my silver lineups. I'll zoom in a little bit. So I actually don't know how this is sorted right now, but I'm known for building the clone decks. So the question was, I've got to ask myself, like, am I buying more rare Clims, more Ansem, more Evan S? Otherwise, those are the solos for this week. But I, as I started thinking, like, basically where ICO Beast is, those 5 lineups, I am a big fan of. I think Serp is going to put up some numbers, grow to a 7 or 8 star. So then when I got to the 21, like I mentioned earlier, an 8.76. Some weeks it can be a 7.77. I ended up going with Taiki for the second 1 star for more of the budget option. Obviously, if you have Ansem, all power to you. Any thoughts on these clone lineups?
Yeah, I am. Taiki used to be so good back when we used to see the green dildo on the timeline and fart coin. He has been hard to predict these days. Definitely could score 600. I'm also just kind of looking at my numbers here.
Right on.
I mean, I agree with it. I think it's a solid choice, especially hedging that, assuming DB doesn't post, right? I don't know. I guess I would personally rank Taiki 4th in my options at 1 star with Ansem 1, DB, and then Makesy, because I still think it's very viable. Like, Taiki could post. Like, I feel like every week he's like posting in the first 3 hours, but then he just kind of vanishes. So I actually see Makesy above Taiki, even if you lose some of that ceiling that Taiki gives you.
What about, where did you list DB? Do you think he's posting or no?
I have no idea.
This would be the financial advice for everybody listening. 507 people, no pressure.
And I wish I didn't sell some of my DBs, but I don't really. What I'm probably gonna do is make, because I have plenty of cards to do it. Is make some that have like Ansem and DB, but then also make a few that don't have DB. Just in case.
Okay.
So
some hedging then.
Yeah, there's got to be. It's like for the last 3 weeks, there's been sort of like hedging of make a version of your lineup that you like without DB and make one that with you do just in case.
What about so that's a good point I want to talk about for a second too. So all the tools out there, we can all make our best data-driven decisions, but then the anomalies happen, right? So I think DB, this is the first time they've gone 5 weeks without post, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always like something to be broken for a record. And in this situation, so I had upgraded to a couple of rares. I was sitting on like 10 or 12 commons, upgraded to a couple of rares. And when inflation started to increase, and I noticed like, the EV of the Jade packs were really good, like over 90%. And so DB's being opened, he was around like 0.03, and then it was kind of 0.025. I ended up selling the common position like a few hours before the printing and packing got paused. And I'm fully sidelined except for like 1 or 2 rares now. But I feel like even if he came back and posted this week, I would still be paranoid to run him in any deck that I wasn't trying to go for the win on. Whereas in before, if he was like consistently, at the 8 star, and I think he did drop down to 7, I was using him in farming decks for elite, and that was always nice. But what are your thoughts on, like, for instance, we've got Nils with King of the Hill. We've got, specifically, so the HUD has exclusive tournaments, and I've submitted this deck here where it's Vo, Clem, CRG, Ansem, and Makesy. And I'm thinking about hedging. Like, I don't own any Vos, but I think Vo could be a good 6 star. Obviously, we know she has a really high ceiling. But when you go through like other games that kind of live within the fantasy community, let's say King of the Hill as an example, do you see that as an opportunity to hedge, where if you've got DBs in your collection, maybe you're playing them like, a couple here, a couple there, but not kind of all in. Whereas then Niels is King of the Hill. You're like, I'm not choosing DB. I'm choosing someone that is more consistent, like Makesy. Or do you see it as hedging your bets in the different tools and different games?
To be honest, no. I just kind of, because I guess this is the other ones I just kind of play for more fun. Yeah, maybe I might do it without DB in those just because I feel like just for the fun of it, not necessarily anything else.
Right on. Yeah, I love how the King of the Hill shows the percentage of other players, or like how many people have chosen that. And so when I see it, I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. If I'm contrarian here, it looks cool like 1 out of 10 times, and I look like the biggest idiot 9 out of 10 times. But I do have fun with it because if I've invested in the cards from actual collection and core, then I'm like, okay, here's what I am playing with. Like, for instance, like obviously I know Greg and Ansem as 8-star rares 99% of the time will outperform the ICO Beast. But obviously I had conviction. I see a lot of value in the heroes who came later in the game who have smaller market caps. So that's where I'm like trying to think about like, ooh, if this game mode, if I can hedge here, or a better example is actually tactics. There were multiple tactics that I played where it's like G Money is literally the best hero for this star count with this salary. Whereas in like, I know I don't want to own G Money in core, but tactics like was spot on. So I feel like the more game modes, the better chance we as players have to kind of get that dopamine and that fix for hedging bets.
Oh, 100% agree with you. In tactics, I was finding myself like, I think, what is that, Mike Dudas? He was a good tactic one because he posts so regularly and gets sort of like a good baseline views, but he doesn't necessarily spike. That you could kind of always kind of plug him in as sort of that like foundational safety card. And a lot of it applies now to free to play as well. Yes. As you need, similar to tactics, you need those kind of heroes.
My example, the Dudas example was, like in free to play, I'm burning every Makesy, right?
Yep.
You just can't afford the downtime if you're focused on XP. Whereas in like Iced Knife, it's so weird because it's like completely flipping the psychology of if you open a Jade pack and it's a Makesy, you're feeling pretty good. You ran above EV. Whereas if you open a Jade pack and it's an Iced Knife, you're like, oh shit, here we go again.
Yep.
Like complete opposite. So I think that's training us all as players to just be more aware. And depending on the game mode, like I call it hedging bets if there's multiple game modes that I'm playing. But I think it's training us all to just know the heroes better. And I think ultimately that's like the true believer and culture of the player base.
Yeah. Well, on that note, you asked earlier, am I thinking about making any new tools? Actually, I somewhat got started on maybe making like a free-to-play inventory analysis tool that helps highlight better the 24-hour scores and like posting frequency. So we'll see. I kind of got started on it. And we'll see. Maybe in the next week I can roll it out. The only challenge is I'm finding I can't easily plug in like a player ID and get the inventory. I have to kind of use a token to get it. So we'll see. But I'm finding myself frustrated because I'm like, I know these heroes, and then I'm sucking in free to play because I'm like, oh, they should be posting. Like they usually score well, but no, they just don't post regularly enough. You're learning something different when you play free to play.
So here's one that's alpha for everybody listening. TheMolt is working on something new. So something that I guess is a selfish recommendation. Have you done anything with like Farcaster and all of the apps there?
No, I haven't.
So I feel like there's the Fantasy Top channel on Farcaster. I'm always sharing content there. It is growing. But the idea is like, the in-app experience, it'd be pretty cool. And I'm sure it could get the attention of Jesse and a few other, base individuals. But I think it'd be really cool if there was something that, you click in, if you can figure out the player ID and it's just a quick reference or a quick visual, but that could be really, really handy. And if it works for free to play, would it work for tactics then most likely?
Yes. I never actually. It could work for tactics then,
Right on. I'm sure there's some beta users here if you need any. So Enormous James asks, so pick one and why. Sell floor cards for ETH and buy a card you want, or burn floors for frags and roll the Jade Pack dice. What are you going with, Molt?
This is easy. I'm one. I sell my floor cards, especially right now when you look at like common floor cards are basically like 3 floor cards would equal a rare. I don't know, like we're out of whack here with the common floors versus like rare floors, and combine that. I think that's a solid floor to sell into. Combine that with the fact, I guess it just depends on the player's maturity or length in the game. Like I've been playing and I have so many cards by now. I know exactly what I need for each week. I'm trying to accumulate ETH to buy the cards that give me an advantage rather than roll the dice and get another heart common that I already have, or a honey common. Like I don't really need those. I'd caveat that to say just kind of it also depends, and Moonie, you cover this a lot, is just like how EV Jades are at the time. If there's a certain hero that's inflation is up and you need more of that hero, then I might do the Jades. What about you?
Yeah, I 99% of the time I am going with option one. So I'm just pulling up here. So this is my best calculations for the EV to cost and Jades. This is even after the DB pausing from being open. Sitting right there. And to give everyone an understanding of the pack EV, like these numbers are actually really good if you think in terms of a TCG. And that's because if you think about like opening a pack of Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, the EV to cost ratio is actually closer to like 40 to 50%. And that's why people have to open case after case after case to try to get the chase rares. So this right here like tells me like Jade all day long. Shinies have hit really high before, especially with new hero introductions. But there's a possible argument for option two here. Depending on what the Fantasy Top team lets us know about the burn leaderboard and the prizes and kind of what's at stake there, that is adding a step to towards more plus EV. I also kind of just have this general rule of thumb that, like as an example, I banked all my fragments over last season, then went through 255 packs of Jades, and I told myself if they were at floor, then I was going to burn simply for the fact that the burn leaderboard is happening this season. So I'm making the assumption that's going to be worthwhile. But then I told myself if they were even just like literally 1% above floor, I was going to go through the process and sell. And then that allowed me to accumulate more ETH. And then I turned around and bought 15 SERPs and then leveled up. And then that's something too. As new heroes are introduced, I'd encourage everyone to kind of look at the inflation degrees. And Molt, do you want me to? Can I pull up your screen right now?
Yeah.
Cool. Look at the inflation degrees and understand that there's so many heroes, so many players downstream that all they can do when a new hero comes out is buy all the commons. And my best example I can use now that we're 8 months into the year is ICO Beast. If you look at his common supply back when he became a hero, and you look at his common supply now, I actually think his common supply is less. And so that means the inflation degree has been dialed in, but people have continually leveled up. And so I think some of the best heroes in the game are the heroes that we ultimately want to continue to level up. And so as an example, if I picked up 15 SERP commons and I turn around and I take those out of rotation entirely by leveling up and moving to rares, and then if you start thinking in like multiples of 5 and then multiples of 25 to get to epics, there's a real possibility for supply crunches of the heroes who are introduced to the game, who then absolutely fall in love with it and really being out there for all of the players. And then you can't find enough copies to do any level ups. And I think that's a really good spot that the game could be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which that kind of reminds me of, we're getting back to ideas of things to add to the sites. I have all the data to put together like historical supply, inflation, burn, like all of that, because I'm indexing everything back when we were on Blast and now on Base. I've got all of it. It's just a matter of spending the time to put it together. So that is something that's on my list. I've always wanted to kind of show growth of supply and all that. and a chart and functionality that people can kind of do their own analysis and filter and slice and dice. So maybe at some point I'll get there. We'll see.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people would utilize that really well for even just like, flipping on the market. I think that'd be a really valuable tool. So speaking of the historical supply, can you let us in on anything with what's in the works for inflation degree?
I know things, but I don't know if I can release what was going to happen. But all I know is it's a priority. It's always going to be a sensitive subject for everybody, and we're listening, and we'll do our best, and keep the feedback coming. That's all I can say. I think it's definitely going to be better. It should. Especially with DV right now and all that, it will definitely improve. Can I say that 6 months from now it's going to solve some future problem that we haven't seen? I don't know.
That's fair. What about so 2 more as we wrap up here in the next few minutes? 2 more rapid fire questions. Trying to possibly get something out of you is one. This is possibly a follow-up question for 710, but will we see tactics back soon?
Maybe 710 can put that in the chat.
Deal. Yeah, 710, if you're listening, win tactics. And then last but definitely not least, anything you can share with us on the potential extra league, or at least timelines?
Definitely couldn't share timelines. And 710 would probably be a better one to divulge any details on the extra experimental leagues.
That's fair. We know it's if the team has announced it in the most recent X thread, surely it's not too far away.
Yeah. All I know is I 100% support it being like an experimental side league that doesn't immediately impact the economy, the strategy, any of that. Nothing that doesn't shock the system basically, and we kind of see how it goes, and if everybody likes it, if it's good, and most importantly the founders and the devs and everybody, they're on board with it, then that's good. It always made me nervous when we talked about just kind of randomly changing our core 4 leagues, and I'm glad we've kind of stabilized on the stars now, because that would always cause drama. But that's all I can say.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you being on today, man. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Looks like 650 people watching right now, which is awesome and appreciated. As always, you can find us on X. So Molt, you're 0x TheMolt. Thank you again. Until next time. Peace, everybody.
Great talking with you. Have a good night.
You too.
Yep.